The rain poured relentlessly, drumming against the pavement as the city buzzed with life. People hurried past, shielding themselves under umbrellas, too busy to notice the frail figure curled up near a bus stop. Thomas Parker sat there, his tattered coat doing little to keep the cold away. His fingers, stiff from the chill, clutched an old tin cup that remained painfully empty. Then, something fluttered past him, a small, crumpled piece of paper skidding across the wet sidewalk. It landed near a puddle, its edges curling from the rain. With trembling hands, Thomas reached for it, carefully unfolding it. It was a child's drawing, messy crayon strokes depicting a little girl holding hands with a tall man. But what made Thomas's breath hitch was the familiar green jacket the man in the drawing was wearing. Beneath it, written in shaky letters, were the words, "Please come back, Daddy." Thomas Parker stared at the drawing, his heart pounding in his chest. The crayon lines were uneven, the colors slightly smudged from the rain, but there was no mistaking it. The man in the picture looked like him. The same messy beard, the same green jacket. He swallowed hard, his fingers tightening around the paper. For years, Thomas had been nothing more than a forgotten face on the streets. Once, he had been a man with dreams, a family, a home. Now, he was just another homeless figure people hurried past without a second glance. Life had not always been this way. 7 years ago, he had a daughter, Emily. She was his world, his little artist, always drawing pictures of their adventures. She used to say, "Daddy, I'll draw us together so we never get lost." But he had gotten lost. After losing his job, he had fallen into a dark spiral, drinking, bad choices, broken promises. One night, his wife, Sarah, had finally had enough. She packed a bag, took Emily, and left. He had tried to fix things, tried to find them. But by the time he did, they were gone, no address, no trace. Years passed. Hope faded. Now, here he was, soaked, starving, alone, staring at a drawing of himself made by a little girl who called him Daddy. His chest tightened. Could this be Emily? Could she still remember him after all these years? And if she did, why was she drawing this now? Thomas looked up, scanning the busy street. Somewhere out there, his daughter might be looking for him. He had to find her. Thomas sat frozen, staring at the crayon strokes of a past he thought was lost. His mind raced as he traced the details, the little girl's curly brown hair, the way she stood beside the man in the picture, her tiny hand gripping his sleeve. It was familiar, too familiar. His heart ached as flashes of the past filled his mind. He remembered Emily at 4 years old, sitting on the living room floor, crayons scattered around her. "Hold still, Daddy," she used to say, her little tongue sticking out in concentration. She loved drawing him, his beard, his jacket, the way he lifted her onto his shoulders like she was on top of the world. "I'll always draw us together, Daddy. That way, you'll never be far away." Thomas clenched his jaw, a lump forming in his throat. But that was years ago. She had been a child then. If she had drawn this picture now, it meant she still remembered him. His hands trembled as he turned the paper over, hoping for more clues. There, on the back, written in uneven, childish handwriting, was something that nearly stopped his heart. "I miss you, Daddy. Mommy says you're gone forever. But I know you're out there." His breath hitched. Emily had been looking for him. All these years, she had never forgotten him. But why? Had her mother told her he was dead? Had she been searching for him all this time, believing he might still be somewhere out there? A sudden wave of guilt and regret crushed him. He had spent so many years lost, thinking it was too late. But maybe it was not too late at all. Thomas's grip on the paper tightened. He pushed himself up from the cold sidewalk, his old joints aching. He had nothing, no home, no money, no plan. But he had a reason to move forward. Somewhere in this city, Emily was waiting. And this time, he would not let her down. Thomas held the drawing tightly as he stepped into the crowded streets. He had no address, no last name, no clue where to start. But he had hope. And for the first time in years, hope was enough. He approached strangers, holding up the picture. "Have you seen a little girl who draws like this?" Most shook their heads, barely sparing him a glance. Some ignored him completely. He visited playgrounds, schools, libraries, anywhere a child might go. But every time, the answer was the same: no one knew Emily. Days passed. His hope wavered. Then, on the 4th night, he passed a community center. Through the window, he saw children sitting at small tables, crayons and paint scattered in front of them. His heart pounded. Could Emily be here? He stepped inside, the warmth of the room hitting his frozen skin. A woman, likely a volunteer, approached him with a gentle smile. "Sir, can I help you?" Thomas hesitated, then held up the drawing. Please, do you recognize this? The woman's smile faded. Her eyes flicked to the drawing, then back to him. Where did you get this? Thomas's breath caught. A little girl made this, didn't she? She hesitated before nodding. Yes, a girl named Emily comes here. She's about 8 now. She loves to draw. His knees nearly gave out. Emily, he whispered, his throat tight. She's my daughter. The woman, Lisa, her name tag read, studied his face. There was no mistaking the resemblance. The man in the drawing, it was him. Lisa exhaled slowly. Emily talks about her father a lot. She says he was lost. Thomas swallowed hard. She's right. But I'm here now. I need to see her. Lisa hesitated. She'll be here tomorrow after school. Thomas's hands trembled. Tomorrow. He would see her tomorrow. For the first time in years, he felt alive. But deep down, a terrifying thought crept into his mind. What if she did not remember him? What if she did not want to? Thomas barely slept that night. His mind was filled with memories of laughter, bedtime stories, tiny hands wrapping around his finger, asterisk, and then the crushing weight of the years he had lost. Asterisk, what if Emily had moved on? What if she hated him for leaving? By morning, his hands were shaking. He arrived at the community center early, his heart pounding so hard it echoed in his ears. Then, the door creaked open. A group of children ran inside, backpacks bouncing, their voices filling the room with energy. And then, he saw her. A little girl with curly brown hair and bright, questioning eyes walked toward the tables, clutching a sketchbook. She looked older than he remembered, but still unmistakably as Emily. His breath caught in his throat. Lisa gently called her over. Emily, sweetheart, someone is here to see you. Emily turned, her eyes landing on the drawing in Thomas's hands. She froze. Her fingers tightened around her sketchbook. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Thomas felt like the world had stopped moving. Would she recognize him? Would she turn away? Then, her eyes filled with tears. You found it? She whispered. Thomas's voice cracked. I did. And I found you. Emily took a hesitant step forward. Then another. And suddenly, she was running. She threw herself into his arms, sobbing into his chest. I knew you were real, she whispered. I never stopped looking. Tears streamed down Thomas's face. He held her like he was afraid to let go. I'm so sorry, he choked out. I never wanted to leave. I tried to find you, Emily. I tried. Emily sniffled, pulling back slightly. Her tiny hand reached into her pocket, pulling out another crumpled drawing. It was him again, but this time he was holding her hand. She looked up, her eyes filled with something he had not seen in years. Hope. Are you going to stay this time? She asked. Thomas's heart shattered. He cupped her small face gently, brushing away her tears. Yes, sweetheart, he whispered. I'm never leaving again. And for the first time in years, he truly meant it. Thomas held Emily tightly, his heart pounding with emotions too big for words. After years of searching, of regret, of believing he had lost everything, he was finally holding his little girl again. But as the moment settled, a familiar voice spoke behind them. Emily. Thomas looked up and saw Sarah, Emily's mother, standing in the doorway, frozen in place. Her face was a mix of shock, fear, and something else. Mom, Emily whispered, wiping her tears. Look, Daddy found me. Sarah's eyes darted between them. Thomas, how did you? Lisa gently stepped in. Emily left a message for him, Sarah. She never gave up on him. Silence filled the room. Thomas slowly stood up, his hands shaking. Sarah, I know I do not deserve it, but I want to be part of her life. Please. Sarah swallowed, emotions flashing across her face, anger, hesitation, and then understanding. She glanced at Emily, who held Thomas's hand like she was afraid to let go. Finally, Sarah exhaled. Emily never stopped believing in you, she said softly. Maybe. I should not have either. Tears welled in Thomas's eyes. For the first time in years, he had a second chance. As they walked home together, Emily squeezed his hand and smiled up at him. Daddy? Yes, sweetheart. She held up her sketchbook. Can we draw together tomorrow? Thomas chuckled, wiping his tears. I would love that. And for the first time in a long, long time, Thomas Parker felt like he was home.